So I know it's Wednesday already, but let's do some catch up on a few videos for BNC today. I wanted to talk about BTC and ETH. I want to talk about alts. Some interesting stuff is definitely brewing as we roil on into Q2. I think predominantly for BTC, people are looking at two things. They're looking at any new higher high, which would be an all-time high here again, and 100K. It's really that simple at this point. Everyone's looking at six figures. That's going to be a strong magnet for price, if you will. Perhaps a strong psychological resistance. It kind of depends how things go, to be quite honest. Logic suggests that six figures will be a strong psychological resistance. So if we wick into it, it's going to get ugly. You know, if it's FOMO City at 90K and then we wick into it, or wick just past it and then crumble down, you know, things could get weird at that level for sure. I think that's more of an expectation than us just shooting through it. I don't know. I guess it depends on what time of day it happens, who's awake, if there's retail FOMO, that sort of thing. But based on the pitchfork, which is 3 points, you get a rate of change. If we get a projection here, the upper resistance is at 75 at the moment. That's going to keep going up through Q2, slightly into 90K. How this worked in 2017 is we actually blew through the multi-year pitchfork on the upside, had some crazy exponential, parabolic, whatever growth in Q4 of 2017, and then eventually we descended back to this median line of that pitchfork. So again, for me, that's an expectation at this point. ETH, I don't have it on the video. I'll show it when I do the ETH vid later today. But for ETH is already above its pitchfork, and it's already well on its way to scream way past the expected rate of change. And just like BTC did in 2018, I expect ETH to crash back down to the median line of that pitchfork. I'll expect BTC to crash back down to this median line. You know, whenever it happens is when it happens. It's not like a timing thing. It's just this is with the support on this day, on this day, on this day, on this day. There's also the 200-day moving average to contend with as support on the way up. So really, I think a lot of people are looking at two things going into Q2. They're looking at BTC all-time highs, and they're looking at alt strength potentially against BTC after an all-time high is established. You know, after a firm new consolidation level is established. We don't, you know, if it's a rejection at all-time highs, you don't consolidate for a whole quarter, right? Like this isn't how an all-time high, a multi-year high is formed. It's just not. So for me, odds are pretty good. We do go higher here throughout Q2. Q2 is the best quarter for all of crypto across the board, especially alts. It's really when alts do well. And that's something else to consider as BTC is making higher highs on the USD pair. If we look at sort of where we were over the past few days, we did put in a hidden bullish divergence, which is what we did several times in 2017, 2016, which continued to propel us higher. So we put in a higher low in price and a lower low in RSI, which says despite an increase in bearish momentum, price was unable to decline further. And that's why you'd consider it a bullish divergence. So again, this suggests strong bullish continuation here. MACD on the daily has flipped back to green today, going into Q2. Again, you know, timing is weird. The announcements that we're getting are weird. Teletubbies, whatever else, Goldman Sachs, Chipotle, it's all weird. But nevertheless, it's rolling into Q2 quite nicely with technicals. RSI is back above 50. What I don't want to see is if we make a new all-time high on a close and we don't make a higher high on RSI, we're going to put in another bear div like we did here. There was a massive bear div here on that high. I don't want to see that again. I want to see RSI above 72, 73 on any higher high we get, on any new all-time high we get. Otherwise, the likelihood for further continuation beyond that is less probable. You know, we just keep putting in bearish divergences, which is fine, but eventually that will be the top. So we want to see strong momentum going to this next all-time high, which based on volume, I'm showing here, we should see some increase in volume eventually. You know, there's this waxing and waning quality to volume here going into Q2, throughout Q1. Hopefully when things pick up, as I think they will in Q2, we'll see an increase strongly in volume there. Looking at BTC, again, where it was And what I'm seeing, it's kind of this war of attrition between bulls and bears. 4-hour MACD's flipping green after resetting completely here. RSI reset as well. We've had a series of inverted head and shoulders with bullish Kumo breakouts twice now. So, if you weren't sure on the first trade, the second one was a mirror image of that. We also have a bullish cloud twist now. So if anything, this is a seal of approval for high leverage, low time frame, cloud trading, chart pattern trading, not investment advice, but this is what I use. If I'm using leverage, I'm using the 4-hour because it's been excellent at chart pattern formation, delivering some sort of bias, delivering some sort of trend continuation, trend reversal, all that stuff. TK lines are bullish. So all in all, 4-hour cloud looks great for up. Hasn't quite reached the expected target yet. And how you get these values is you take the fib extensions, take the high, take the low, and then that projects the level upwards. And that's the expected price level on the pattern that should hit. So here's ETH on the 4-hour, and it's been even more of a battle of attrition. Inverted head and shoulders, inverted head and shoulders. And in all cases, this resistance was reached, this support was reached, and this resistance on this current head and shoulders is reached. So all in all, it's traded very technically despite seemingly super random walky, very turtle soupy, very Barty, all over the place. Volatility has been crazy on a micro scale. If you zoom out, you say, okay, maybe this isn't an ascending triangle, right? In which case, again, expectation is bullish bias, expectation is bullish continuation. ETH did not have a hidden bull div here. I think that's less important for ETH. ETH's daily MACD is flipping green again. Volume's just really shelved off a cliff for ETH. So if this does break 1950, I definitely want to see some sort of volume come in here because you don't want just a continual fade of volume. You want exuberance to break these patterns. You want momentum. Otherwise, you get less convinced that this has additional legs. If this behaves as expected with a bullish bias, again, using those fibs extensions as targets, somewhere between 2222 and 2400 would be the next all-time high level that I expect price to reach at minimum based off this chart pattern. So again, bullish for ETH. Switching gears to alts, ETH BTC's a bit of a mess. I mean, I saw a channel here, right? And I'm like, okay, maybe I can fit a pitchfork in here. The cloud is telling me we won't be bullish until June, essentially. June 28th is the bullish Kumo breakout potential. Even if this goes sideways, it's going to break out of the cloud at that point. Right now, it's in the cloud. It's a no trade zone, really, is what the cloud is telling you. It had a chance at some sort of edge-to-edge trade throughout late 2020, early 2021, but that has faded as far as possibilities are concerned in my mind. So at this point, I'm looking for something into June 28th, which may or may not be any sort of upgrade. EIP 1559, who knows? At this point, they're just going to keep delaying whatever they need to delay, which is fine. But again, that may line up with technicals here as far as announcements are concerned. The pitchfork is actually pretty convincing. The channel holds as far as the highs and the lows. You're getting resistance on this median line. Again, here's another great example of when we're oversold down here, price really wants to return to this magnet. When we're overbought up here, price wants to return to this magnet of a median line. So if you're trading this as a buy zone, magnet zone, you're expecting 055 basically throughout Q2. Anything above that's a bonus based on price's inability to exceed the median line at this point. So I wouldn't get too bullish just yet. For me, I'm just watching this weekly cloud past June 28th, which should align pretty nicely with some sort of announcement about something, right? At this point, who knows with ETH. Scanning through a few of the other alts, Doge broke the 100 sat level at this point distinctively for the first time since it broke above it. And that's a signal to me that this sucker is just going to fade to probably below 40 again. I mean, it's done this how many times? 65 million times at this point. If you're hodling Doge against BTC, you're probably in for a bad time. Doge USD looks okay, I guess. You're hoping that this isn't an inverted Adam and Eve and this doesn't retest the 200-day moving average. You're hoping that this is some sort of triangular consolidation. I don't know. It's not a trade for me at all. Surprisingly enough, BTC dominance does suggest strong alt movements throughout Q2 as it historically has. So this says that dominance is below the 200-day moving average. So alts should do better than BTC. There's also some sort of head and shoulders or pseudo head and shoulders here that's pointing towards bearish continuation at this point. So if seasonality holds true, alts should do well through Q2. And I'm going to lay out the case on what that may look like for some of these charts. Here's Link BTC, which has just been obliterated below the 200-day moving average. However, it is trying to form some sort of Adam and Eve. There's even a falling wedge here, like there are on many BTC charts right now. Arguably some sort of bullish divergence here. And Link is no stranger to sort of bullish reversal patterns near this level, albeit these were above the 200-day moving average, but this is sort of what I expect to try to see. Is this would be an Adam and Eve. So throughout Q2, you'd be seeing some sort of lift above the 200, back to this yearly pivot, back to this horizontal resistance, and then a move above those levels into the fib levels. At this point, this is a massive hopium type chart. I wouldn't be holding Link on this against BTC, but it's something that I'd be looking for in the next few weeks throughout Q2, that sort of thing. And that really holds for all the alt charts I'm going to show, because if we look at EOS BTC, bull div, all over this, multi-month bull div. Now, I don't trust any of these projects. I think they're all worthless that I'm about to show you, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a trade here potentially on these projects. So bear div, the technical analyst in me says this looks like a decent long. It's setting up for a W double bottom, which is a strong bullish reversal. It's setting up for at least a mean reversion play to the 200-day moving average. It's below the previous all-time high or all-time low. So there's a lot of confluence here for, at the very least, some sort of mean reversion play. Anything beyond that would be a bonus, but it would be coming off of this W double bottom. XRP, very similar. Mean reversion play, bull div. The real reason I'm talking about these isn't necessarily that people should be trading them. It's just I see a lot of other people talking about them, and they're not wrong that these charts look decent for some sort of move. I think fundamentally they're all garbage, essentially, especially XRP, but the trade is the trade, right? So who am I to judge what you do to try to get more BTC? This is Tezos BTC. Historically, it's liked somewhere between 111 and 143 days as far as a bottom formation. These bottom fractals are similar-ish. It's weird because they all sort of fall into some sort of inverted or Adam and Eve category or W double bottom category. This is no different. So if we do get a mean reversion to this VPVR level, to the 200-day moving average, there's going to be a lot of resistance here. So if it breaks that resistance, I'd expect further continuation like it has in the past. And if XTZ, if Tezos moves, it would be due to sector strength against BTC, not necessarily anything Tezos does on its own. And that's, again, with all these altcoin charts. I think these only find a bullish reversal if BTC consolidates once again after an all-time high. That's typically how this works. I don't necessarily expect alts to just do well against BTC. ETC, BTC, same thing. Multi-month bullish div, W double bottom, mean reversion potential, and then some at this point. Yearly pivot, previous Adam and Eve consolidation, resistance level. So you can just look at all these charts, just scan them yourselves and see what you think. CRX, again, just kind of an old coin that for years has languished at all-time lows, basically. It looks like it may have a chance to get out of this consolidation above 5,500 sats, maybe 2x, maybe 3x, I don't know. All these charts could potentially do well against BTC. And then lastly, BCH, which again, if you didn't know this was BCH, right? If you didn't know the ticker, this would look pretty good. This is, if I'm looking to long an alt, this is what I'm looking for. Multi-month bullish divergence, just absolute wreckage all the way down. But again, fundamentally, BCH to me is worthless, so it's a tough pill to swallow to want to be in that trade against BTC. Maybe you're waiting for some sort of washout wick or something in the next couple weeks. BSV, again, it had this parabolic downside into a falling wedge, into multi-month bull div. Again, I don't think this is worth anything, but there's a trade here potentially to watch and to actually take against BTC if there's sector strength against BTC in altcoins. The alternative coins, I guess lastly, the LTC BTC chart, at this point, you probably want it to wick into these old polo lows that were like flash crash lows or something, because it doesn't look like it's going to want to find any strength here until basically new all-time lows. So if you're a brave trader, maybe you're buying knives down here or you have bids below 0025, maybe at that point the risk reward gets good enough that this is a possible long trade, because this looks ugly. I mean, this had a chance to base and just got denied, and now it's close to new multi-year lows. It had a chance to have a bull div here that failed. Now it looks like it's going to want to test basically extreme oversold on the RSI, which it hasn't seen since 2017. So things are lining up mega doomsville for LTC BTC. That's really all I have for this Setup Monday on this Wednesday. So like, subscribe, dislike, talk to me in the comments. Let me know what you're looking at as far as alts are concerned, and happy trading.